everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make this absolutely gorgeous Japanese folded cushion. It really is super. It's a cushion inside a cushion. So if you pull on the strings and you open it out, you've got a cushion inside an outer. So I hope you'll enjoy watching this. Do let me know if you enjoy. Give this video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to my channel for more videos like this in the future. So let's get into the video. So to make this fantastic little Japanese inspired cushion, you're going to need a 16-inch circle template. I'm just using this little wire wreath that I've got. Of course, you could draw your own template if you're handy. I've just got this because it's simple and to hand. So you need that template. You're going to be making 4 of these circles. So you need to interface them. I'm using a fusible fleece. I do think that this is probably the best option. You don't want to use anything like a Decaville light because it's too structured. You want something that's a bit soft so it wraps around that cushion really nicely. So you're going to need some of that. Then you're going to need 3 fabrics. So you need 2 for the outer, front and back of the circles. So I've gone for this beautiful Moda print, absolutely stunning. And then I've gone for this absolutely beautiful John Loudon yellow for the back, gorgeous. Then you need just 1 fabric for the cushion inside the cushion. So I've gone for the corresponding navy of this Canoe by Moda. Really, really beautiful fabrics. So let's get into the tutorial. So we're going to start off by making the cushion that goes inside the folded element. Now this cushion is a 14-inch cushion. These cushions are really easy to come by, so you can get something to fill it really well. Really, really simple cushion, so let's get started. So we're going to make a simple envelope fold cushion. So you need 1 piece that's 14.5 inches. And then you need 2 pieces that are 14.5 inches along and just about 10 inches in depth. You could go down to 8 inches if you want to, but I quite like a nice deep envelope fold. So the first thing we're going to do is top stitch one edge of this. So we're going to turn it over by 1/2 inch like so and just top stitch that. So do that on one and then do that on the second piece. You can press this down, you can finger press, you can pin into place. So now we've done those 2 pieces, we want to lay one on your counter with the top stitched edge facing away from you. Then you want to get your second piece and you want to lay the top stitch edge over the top facing towards you, and you want to make sure those sides come to 14 inches. So the best thing to do is get a ruler. Measure along the bottom here, find that 14-inch line on your ruler, and then bring the top flap down so that you hit 14.5 inches actually, don't we? We want 14.5 inches. So there we go, that's our square piece. I'm going to just pin that together so that it doesn't move when we join it to the front piece. And talking of the front piece, we want to take that, layer that over the top, and we want to stitch all the way around the outside of that using a good 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, and then we're just going to use the flap that we've created and turn that round. Poke out those corners, remove the pins, like so. And then get a cushion to pop inside. So now we've made the inner part of this cushion, we're going to start making the outer. So taking our fabric, I'm going to choose the outer fabric first. And using our template, we want to cut out 4 circles of this. I'm not using any seam allowance on this. This is just a 16-inch circle. So you could use your heat erasable pens if you want to, but because the edge of this is going to be encapsulated in the seam allowance, I'm just going to use like a biro. I'm just going to draw around these now and you can come back to me when they've been cut out. So they've all been cut out. We've got 4 of our interfacing, that's the fusible fleece. 4 of our first colour and then 4 of our secondary colour. Now we're going to need to fuse this fleece onto one of these. It really doesn't matter which one because they're going to be flipped and turned. So it doesn't matter. But whichever side you don't fuse, you're going to need some sort of basting spray. So I'm going to use this June Taylor basting spray. This is a fantastic, fantastic product. I find a can really lasts me a long time. So it's well worth having one of those in your stash. So I think I'll just choose this motor to fuse the fleece onto. So I'll just pop my spray to one side and I'll bring in my wool pressing mat. I think the iron's just about warm. So I'll take my first one, make sure the fusible side is face upright. You can tell because the non-fusible side's really, really soft and the fusible side's got a sort of grainy texture, which is the glue. So placing that on my mat and then my fabric face up, just line those up and then give that a good press over with your iron. Your standard household iron that's a bit larger than the small prim irons are really useful for these. So if you've got one of those to hand, it certainly speeds up the process. And then we'll move through and we'll do that for all of the others. So again, making sure that side is, the glue side is facing up. Now we move on to the stick and spray part of this, where we're going to use the June Taylor spray. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can use your June Taylor spray and pop it on like this, so you've got right sides facing out, and then bind the whole edge of this piece using a bit of bias binding. And then you don't need to turn anything around, and it's just a really, really beautiful piece. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put right sides together. So placing our gorgeous, gorgeous aqua fabric, we're going to place this other circle on top, right sides together. We're going to use about a 1/2 inch seam allowance, just so that you know you've grabbed all of those layers, and you want to leave a good 3-inch gap for turning this around on itself. Now, when you've done that and you've turned it round, we're going to close up that seam. You can then go ahead and quilt these panels if you want to. You could do some gorgeous free motion. There are so many beautiful things you could do with this, but I'm just going to go ahead now and stitch these together. Now, you're welcome to pin these layers together or use your quilting clips. I find a couple of pins in the center area is really good, or you can of course use those quilting clips all the way around the outside. It's entirely up to you. But taking it over to the machine, we are going to line up that 1/4 inch line, and we're going to simply stitch around the outside of this, and don't forget that 3-inch gap for turning. And because this is a really nice big circle, there isn't any fiddling about, there isn't any really drastic turning. The machine is just going to take it through. Now, coming up to that starting point, going to measure around about 4 inches. We will do a back stitch to finish that stitch, because we're going to put a little bit of pressure on that seam when we turn it through. So nice back stitch, take out your pins. If you want to trim away some of this excess, then please go ahead and do so. It might be a little easier to have a nice crisp edge if you do that, or you could snip into it all the way around, but I just find going quite close to those stitches will absolutely suffice. So we'll do that all the way around. Now we turn it through. So you won't need a pokey device or anything like that because this is so large. But turning it through, just move the others out of the way for a second. So we've got the mat. Just using my hand to push against those seams. And then we can give this a really, really nice press all against those edges, make that really nice and crisp. And then we'll turn over that gap. And you want to make sure you're following the sort of curved edge. It doesn't matter too much if you can't get that very curved, but as curved as you can. Press, give that a little press. I've done the top layer and then I'm going to do the bottom layer first. I find that easier to do rather than trying to do the whole thing. Just splitting it up into top and bottom, and then lining that bottom layer up to the top. So I folded that over and that's joined up really nicely. I'm going to top stitch the whole thing. So it's just going to be a nice continual top stitch, and that will enclose that area really nicely. So I'm going to use about 1/4 inch seam allowance and just top stitch around the whole thing. Little back stitch. And trim off those excess threads. So now you want to repeat that another 3 times. So now we've done all 4 circles, we need to make 2 loops and 2 strings. So we want for the strings to cut 2 pieces which are 2.5 inches by 12 inches long. I'm going to use the gorgeous yellow fabric, so I'll just cut those pieces now. So 2.5 inches by 12, which is about there. So these are going to be our strings. So 2 of those. And then we want to make 2 loops. Now, if I'm looking slightly off camera, it's because I'm trying to look at myself to make sure that you can see everything. But the cameras, I think, are over there, but I have to look there. So I'm ever so sorry about that. Right, so for the loops, you want a 2.5 inch by 6 inch piece times 2. So we've got those cut out. Just put all those bits away. Keep tidy. Then bringing in our pressing mat again. We are simply going to, I'll show you on one of the longer pieces, so I think it'll probably be easier. So laying that flat on your mat, we're going to fold this directly in half, and we'll just finger press that. There's no need to really go to town on the press for that. We just want it so that we can see the mark. So we finger press that, then we're going to open it out like that. Then we take this longest edge and we fold it into that line, and we do the same on the other side, and then we fold the whole thing together, so it makes a really, really secure strap. Before we do those folds, we want to neaten off both ends, because those both ends are going to be seen. They're not being tucked away anywhere. So if you just fold over 1/4 inch either side and press, that will give you a nice neat end to your strap. And then you can go ahead, fold over one, press, and fold over the bottom and press. Like so. And then when you've got that, you're going to take the top over to the bottom, press this really, really well, because that's our final piece. And then you're simply going to top stitch this. So I top stitch both ends, top stitch down one side and top stitch down the other side, just to make it really, really neat. So you're going to do that for both the long strips, and you're going to do that for the loops as well. You only need to neaten off one edge, because the other edge is going to be tucked behind. So one edge is absolutely fine. Now we're going to move on to folding our circles. So you need to decide what fabric you're going to have on the outer and what fabric you're going to have on the inner. I'm going to have the gorgeous, gorgeous yellow on the inner, and then that lovely turquoise coming over. So you want to lay your circle in front of you like this. You can just about see that. Then you're going to fold over each side into the center. Now there will come a point where it naturally meets the other side. I'll show you as I go along, and that is where you want to stop and is where you want to pin. So I'm going to take one side, I'm just going to fold it over. I already know that's too big. Just by looking at it, I can see that's too big. So I'm just going to fold that back a little fraction like that. It's roughly 2 inches of a fold. I'm going to then take the bottom piece, and I can just bring that side piece in again. And what I'm looking for is where they naturally come together like this, just so there's a little gap between them. So I'm going to pin those two in position, because I know they're right, because they're meeting like that. So just pin one of those flaps down, and pin the other one down. Oopsies, like so. Sorry about the fly buzzing around. So now we've got this. We're going to repeat that on the other side. So bring in the top, and then where it naturally just about meets that side piece. I can't find any more pins, so I'll just quilting clip it like this. Okay, like that. Then the final side, and then just look to make sure that's sitting nicely. And of course, again, you can pin or you can clip. I have just found a couple of pins, and I would prefer to use the pins because I really want to pin down the flap a bit better than the clips will do. Right, so this is what we've got now. What we're going to do is we're going to stitch these flaps down. Now you can just double stitch over your top stitch that you've already done. You can do a stitch a little bit lower if you want to. You can stitch over the top. I'm going to stitch over the top with a zigzag stitch, just so it gives a little bit of extra, a little bit of interest. Again, you could use your gorgeous embroidery threads if your embroidery stitches on your machine if you'd like to. I'm just going to use a simple zigzag stitch, and then I'm going to repeat that for the last 3 circles. Right, so now we've got all 4 squares. We want to put them together. Now all you're going to do is butt them against each other and do that zigzag stitch again. So lay 2 together and the other 2 together, like so. And you're going to, as I said, butt them together and zigzag stitch down. Do the same with the other 2 and then butt the 4 together and zigzag across the whole thing. And then butt those together to make the 4. So that is the outer side of our cushion complete. What we need to do is we need to attach those strings and loops that we made earlier. So taking the 2 string pieces, what you want to do is flip your project over so you've just got the inside section showing. Just make sure you've got rid of all of those threads because they can be a pain. And you want to place these on opposite corners. So all I'm going to do is, it doesn't matter which corner to start, is because we made that really nice edge, I'm simply going to pop that on about 3/4 of an inch in. I'll flip it around so you can see, about 3/4 of an inch in. You can either hand stitch that on or you can just top stitch that with the machine. I'm going to use the machine. So I'll just pin that into place. And then on the opposite corner, I'm going to do exactly the same and pin that into place. And with the 2 other corners, we take our loop. Now remember, we only top stitched one end, the neat end. So you're going to take that neat end and place it over the top of the rough end. And then you're going to place that again, exactly the same way as you did with the straps, like so. And then pin that into place, like that. Do the same again on the opposite side. Making sure they're facing out, and you're just going to stitch those down. Sticking with the zigzag theme, I'm going to use a zigzag stitch to just top stitch those down. One, and then we're going to grab the cushion we made first of all, and we're going to pop it in the middle. So now it's time to pop that gorgeous cushion inside the outer. So you want to pop it at an angle, so the corners are at the sides, like so. And taking your corners, fold them into the center. These are the 2 looped corners. I'm going to take one of the straps, pop it through one loop and pull, and pop it back through the second loop. Then I'm going to take the other side, bring it over, and I'm going to repeat that. Pop it through one loop, pop it through the second loop, and pull. And then you can tie a lovely bow at the top, like so. Make it a little bit neater. And there you've got your super Japanese folded cushion. Thanks for watching.